Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland. In this episode, I'll be reviewing the CRP pedal set from the guys at MOZA Racing, constructed from 5mm thick side plates and 30mm square pedal levers, using contactless position sensors with a brake pedal sporting a 100kg load cell. These pedals have the makings of a good set. Time to put them through the SRG's review process and see how they do. So, let's get to it. Let's take a closer look at these MOZA CRP pedals. This pedal only comes in a 3-pedal set, and out of the box they present very well. Everything is professionally done as far as finish, any logo etching done on it. As you can see, they look pretty good under the lights, with a lot of this aluminum exposed after they do their coating, so it gives it a lot of stylings. The pedals themselves are all aluminum construction, and the hardware in here, so far as I can tell, is actually stainless steel. It doesn't have much magnetic attachment at all, including the fasteners down here. So stainless steel and aluminum. It looks like we have some Duralin on the back here. That's definitely not steel or aluminum. And of course, Duralin, if you know what that is, that's a manufacturable plastic. It's very hard and used in a lot of industry things. The pieces here, it looks like this is etched on here somehow. The logo is not a sticker or anything like that. Same thing with the MOZA pieces over here on this piece here that's capturing the shaft when we're using the throttle. All gold anodized, black anodized. We have some very long flanges here on these pedals. You can see in the background I have a pedal plate for this, so we'll take a look at that when we get to that point. Again, overall, everything is well done here. We have sensors down here. These are Hall sensors. So no contact there. That should give us long life cycles. And everything looks pretty good here. The adjustments, which we'll go over, seem to be pretty simple. It doesn't look like there's a lot of them, at least on the throttle. Of course, the brake will have different bumpers and things that we'll go over in a minute. Just take a look at that. Yeah, it's just well done. I'm not sure about the shape here of the pedal itself. They call this pedal an organ pedal, so that when you're pressing on it, I'm not sure what the difference is on any other pedal, but yeah, marketing material being what it is these days on any product. So anyway, it still has a piece sticking out. It looks like it'll be good for heel and toe shifting. And of course, I'll find that out once I'm doing it. Very simple looking mechanism for adjusting the angle of the pedal. The angle of the accelerator, I don't think, changes with the adjustment here. We got some different adjustments. We'll go over that when we get there. The aluminum itself, this is a solid piece of aluminum for the lever. It almost looks like it's 2 pieces because of the way they've chamfered all these edges of the aluminum. It almost looks like there's 2 pieces, one side, one here, and you can see it's chamfering down in here too, but it just gives you the impression that this is a single plate on this side and the same thing on the other side. At least to me, when out of the box when I was looking at it, yeah, it's not. It's a whole piece here. So whoops. Around this way. So this is a solid piece of aluminum that's been machined on. And yeah, we have a pivot point down at the bottom here. It's quiet on the landing, but when you come back out, you can hear there's a snap to it. So we'll see how that sounds once we have the pedals solidly mounted and we're using them, but it looks like it might be a little loud there, but we won't know until we do that. Got some connectors here that will plug into the main box that is on the brake pedal. Taking a look at the brake pedal, you can see the main controller box is down here on the bottom. And it's mounted via some screws down in there. That little bracket that has the screws in it is actually mounted into the sides here. See right there. And of course, the brake pedal has a different configuration than the throttle. So does the clutch. The clutch is actually different than the throttle too. We'll look at that in a minute. Again, all the connections here, we got USB-B. We have a clutch connection where we'll put the clutch plug. It will be on this side of the pedal, so it makes sense to put it there. We've already got the brake connected, obviously, because it's on here. And we have curious enough, we have a position sensor here for the brake, but we also have load cell back here. And you can see that's back here sitting in back where this piston or shaft is going to be driving against it when we push on it. So it's a flat looking load cell. We might take that off or take this part out. I think when you do an adjustment here on the bumper that you have to pull this piece out. Again, this looks like it's Duralin, and well, like I said, we'll get there when we get there, but it looks like we'll pull this off, we'll be able to see more of it. But yeah, it's a flat style load cell. And that wire's going back internally. Okay, you can actually see it back here. See, it's kind of going into this piece over here. We also have another piece empty there. Now on the other side, curious, we have the throttle, obviously, where we can put our throttle plug in right here, just like the clutch plug. Same shape, same pin count. But we also have the connector for a DC input. That's what that connector's for. And the connector next to it, the other black one, is for throttle motor. So I don't know what that means. There's nothing on their website about any kind of a throttle motor. Maybe something in the future they're getting that you can add onto the throttle, or maybe another throttle pedal that comes with some kind of a motor on it. So yeah, interesting that they would have that on this pedal as far as being brand new like this and out of the box and not have the motor on the throttle. Maybe something, like I said, it has to be something they're going to be doing in the future or they wouldn't label it. Right. The clutch itself, just like the throttle as far as the plates. Now all these side plates are the same. And it looks like to me all of these levers are the same too, the way they make this. So they can make all of the same lever and it covers all three pedals, which is a convenience and an economy of manufacture, obviously. And of course, all of this machining here is done identically too on the sides. You know, again, on the clutch, we have our little sensor over here, Hall sensor. And we'll take one of these off and take a look at it when we get the chance. And yeah, this clutch actually feels pretty good. They call this a 3-stage clutch. Guys out of the way. And I'm not sure why they call it that because, well, I guess you could count 3 stages of the pressure you're putting on it. But the idea is to press down on it and feel like you're pressing through a clutch pack pressure plate spring. And it does that pretty good. It'll snap back. Let me kind of hold it down here. Once you relieve the pressure, once you're holding it like this, there's not much pressure required at all. And then it snaps back. So that gives you the feel that you're pushing in a real clutch pressure plate spring, to me anyway. And on the bench, it always feels good, but most of these things kind of disappear once you're actually driving the car. And we'll talk more about that as we go along in this review. We also have a rotating piece here in the back. That's also Durlin. And we can change the spring out here for different tension adjustments. I think that's the only adjustment you'll do here. And it's interesting that they have, and this is not going to be easy to show you in the lights because it's black on black, which is not a good contrast. But you can see these got 2 plates on either side of this assembly. And they are actually cut into a cam profile down in here. There's 2 rollers. That'll show up in the light. I guess you can see these little rollers right here. They're kind of matte color, so they're not going to reflect much. But anyway, you got one on each side, and it's following the cut or the profile, what I'm calling them cam plates, as you push it down. So it starts up high here, and this is not going to be easy to show. But it starts high, and then it drops down as we push. And as it drops down towards the bottom of the plate here, you'll see this whole thing tilt down. And that's what you're seeing when I'm doing this. See how it's tilting down? So the wheels are following that profile down and then back. And they go down first, which gives you the initial pressure. And then they kind of drop off the end, which gives you that holding part of the pressure plate spring feel. And it pops back. But again, it's kind of hard to do this, even with a light setting. You're not going to be able to see what the wheels are doing anyway, but I will try to compress it here. There we go. See how those wheels are moving? And then you collapse it there. I'm going to hang on to it. I'm going to release it because it tends to jump out. All right. So on the table or bench, yeah, it feels pretty good actually. So I'm not sure what it's going to translate to once we're in the car, but we'll find that out when we get there. So yeah, overall, as you can see, just well done here everywhere I look. Chamfering is everywhere. The pedal plate adjustments for the pads, we can go left or we can go right, but we cannot go up or down. See there, those are already taken up in a permanent position, so there's no way for us to do that. But we can go this way and that way, which is a good thing because there's, from what I've seen so far on the plate over here, we're going to be mounting them, not a lot of lateral adjustment available, even though if you want to do left foot braking, you can always put the clutch in the middle and do the braking over here if that's all you're going to do, or just take the clutch out completely if you're not going to use it. It's going to be easy to do that though, unlike some of the other pedal sets out there. V3 from Fanatec's a good example of that. They have those bars and stuff, so it's going to be, it's doable, but it's really hard to switch out the clutch and the brake, or get rid of the brake, or rather the clutch, and then just have the brake and the throttle. because you need spacers to take up for the space that the clutch is leaving once you take it out. But it's all doable, obviously, given the right materials and time to do it. So yeah, the pedals themselves, as far as dimensions go, the weights on it, the throttle itself is 2 pounds and 8 ounces. And that's 1.13 kilos. Over here we have the brake, usually the heaviest one, and that is true here. This is 2 pounds, 13.5 ounces, or 1.29 kilos. Not that heavy. And the clutch is a little bit heavier than the throttle, comes out at 2 pounds, 9.5 ounces, and that's 1.17 kilos. So, pretty neat as far as what you see when you pull these things out. Like I said, they've done a very good job on the presentation here and the finish. Now we'll look at this. Let me push these back a little bit. Take a look at the pedal plate they give you. It comes with it, part of the kit. This is a heel stop, and this is a 2mm thick piece of steel. Yeah, that's pretty good steel there. You can see that's real steel. It's not stainless because it sticks very tightly to our magnet. The plate itself over here, this would be the front of it, and this would be the rear, and the pedals will be mounting to these holes in it. We've got a lot of holes here. These are M8 holes, and we can do a couple of different things with the positions, but not much, because you can see we have a pair of screw holes here, and that's one pedal. Let's use the throttle because it's the lightest, and it would fit there. And then the brake would fit here on these two, like this. And then we've got a series of 3 in a row, 3 rows of those. If you put your pedal over here, it matches up to this one and this one, but not this one, because if you try to slide it over any further, you're off the edge this way to get to it. And yeah, what it's made for, I believe, is the brake to be able to come over more, because if you line up with this hole and the one in the middle here, it fits. So we can go here, or we can go here on that. And I believe, again, that's for the distances between the brake pedal and the clutch to be able to be adjustable a little bit. But we'll see that once we get to the mounting procedure. This is steel plate. And again, just like the piece over here that we saw before, is 2mm thick. It is all steel. Looks to be like a stamped unit. You can see it's kind of all one piece here as it folds around. And then we have it connected. Curiously enough, we have this connected with screws here and here for these support brackets. But the support brackets are actually spot welded in. You can see those there. We got a couple here, got one here, here, and on the other, down on the bottom here, we've got one. So we got 2 here and 2 here, and we've got 2 here and 2 here. So it looks like we may have missed one here in the production, because we have one right there. Well, I can see that, but there it is. And it's curious, like I said, they've got these screwed in. So I'm imagining that they use the screws to tie this together, screw everything down tightly, and it acts kind of like a welding jig, if you will, so that nothing moves around when they're doing the welding. So they do have some welds there to hold these in. It does feel very stiff, as you might imagine, with those 3 plates being welded there. I don't think there's going to be too much of a flex problem. Plus, we're going to be pushing on it. The pedals in, get these pedals out of the way before I scrape them up. We'll be pushing this way on it, right? So yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be a pretty solid. It feels solid in hand. I don't think we're going to have too much flex out of it. Then we'll find out eventually. Curious thing, they don't put anything on the front. It's the same way on the back. In the back, I can understand, but I'd like to see something, you know, some kind of a plate, because everything else is finished so well here. This kind of stands out to me that they didn't put something up here, something removable that you can still get to the bolt holes. Because remember, we need to bolt this thing down to something. Now we have these, before I get to the bottom, 3 holes here on each side, these little holes, and that's for this. So we can put our heel stop in there. So it has 3 positions that you can do that. There is some adjustability. As you can see, we've got 2 slots in the back, but we've got a single hole in the front. That means if we put the holes in the front in, let's put this right here, even though I've got slots in the back here, I can't move it forward because it's a hole. Unless I don't use this, and I just use 2 holes on the flange back here, and then I can move it back and forth a little bit, which my thinking is most pedals that we have, these ones I've seen here at the Sim Racing Garage, they only have 2 anyway, 2 holes. But then we've got them 2 back here tightly bolted with M8 bolts. Are we really going to need those up front? It depends on the person and how you're driving, I would imagine. Typically, if I see a hole, I want to fill it. All right, that's just the way I usually go. And if they got enough bolts to do it, that's what I'll do. but I might try it the other way too if I need to adjust it. All right, so the bottom, we have some mounting holes here. We've got some slots here. We've got some independent holes with nothing in them, and we have some holes here and here and here and here, and those are M8 holes. They're threaded to M8 threads. See those threads in there? And the rest of these are just holes that we would put bolts in. So if you use the threaded ones, you'll have to come up from underneath and have a plate or something that you've drilled or a piece of wood, whatever the case may be, and then use it that way, bolts from the bottom. But I'm going to be using this probably mounted to profile, so I'll be using some of these holes to get the bolt in to secure it to a T-nut. And we'll see how that goes once we get to the mounting segment. We also have some etching here. Again, these are not decals, some laser etching with their little pattern here. It looks like a checkered flag. Anything else I want to talk about this? Yeah. I think that's it. Again, I'd like to see something that you could do with that. Although once you're mounting it to the bottom of your pedal tray in your cockpit, you're obviously not going to see it very much. But again, and you can see also, let me show you this, is the way they've painted these, the finish on them. I'm not sure if it's going to show up in the light very well, but you can see it's lighter on the inside here. And that's another reason to have a cover over it, number one. You don't see it here, but just in the very corners down in here, you can see where it hasn't been covered all the way. And I think that's probably because they cover it after they do the welding, and it's hard to get the spray down in there, I would think. So this, yeah, I like to show everybody everything. And again, another reason to have a little piece going across the top here. Although not many people are going to be getting down and looking down in there once you have it mounted, obviously. But, you know, I like to show you guys as much as I can so you can make your own decision as whether you might want something or not. The pedals, as far as their dimensions, the brake and the clutch are the same size. Bring these in here. They are, now, again, we can't go up or down, so the size is the size. So if I get it off the flange where it's making contact with my bench, it's about 220 millimeters, a little bit short as far as how tall they are. And that comes in about 8.5 inches. Same thing on both of them. Now, if we get the throttle, obviously it's going to be a little bit taller. The lever is not taller, but this is taller because of how long that is and it sticks up. Again, kind of a funky looking pattern there. What do you think? All right, so this is a little over about 9.25 inches, and I would call that about 230 millimeters, maybe 235 millimeters. So there's your dimensions. Now the length of this thing, and they're all the same, so we can just do one, is 220 millimeters long, and the width on the throttle looks to be 80 millimeters, maybe 85 millimeters. Yeah, 85. Now this should be the same, but let's see what the brake pedal is. I imagine it's the same too. They should probably all the same. They just fit everything as far as the electronics and made it to fit. Yeah, 85 millimeters. So the same thing. So all the same size except for the throttle that's a little bit taller. What do you get with your pedal set? Well, you get a USB-B cable to A. And this is a side mount, which is nice because you see your USB port is over here. So your pedals will be stacked up like this. And yeah, this is where this is going to shine because it's a 90-degree plug. It'll go in here and it won't interfere with the pedal on this side. So nice that they did that and just give you a straight one. Now, we get some tools. And these look like some pretty generic wrenches. They are, about as cheap as you can get, I suppose, from the looks of it. But they're wrenches. We have an 8 and a 10 on one side. We have a, that's the same one. Where's the other one? Okay, the other one is a 13 and a 15. Now, I looked around here. I couldn't find a 15 anywhere. Found a 13, but I couldn't find a 15. And the nut here is actually 20 millimeters. But you can turn these with your fingers, and we'll see that in the adjustment section. We also get some super lube, so you can keep your pedals operating smoothly. Pretty generous amount there, actually. And we get some bumpers here, and that's for the brake, obviously, when we adjust it. One's hard, one's medium. The one is in from the factory is a soft. We also have a couple of springs here. This would be the replacement for your brake spring, and this would be a hard. The yellow is supposed to be medium, and yeah, we don't have any other ones, so that's all you get. Now this will be for the clutch, and this is a softer spring than the yellow that's in there. And I can tell that just by looking at it, because the thicknesses of the springs are easily seen by the eye that are different as far as the thickness of the spring here in the metal. So we know this is a softer one. But you know, I think you probably could use this over here too on the throttle if you really wanted to. If you didn't like the way the throttle was feeling. We get some screws. We get a whole bag of them. And we get a bag of plastic nylon washers, which, to be honest, I kind of like, because they're not going to scar up the finish, this anodized finish on the aluminum. If these were metal, then the first time you apply it and you crank down and torque down on it, every time you take it off from there forward, there's going to be a mark on here from where that washer dug in. You know, that's just fasteners, though. It's nothing new, right? This is what it looks like. It looks to be about, it's about 2 millimeter thick washer here. But again, it's a plastic. Stiff, but yeah, I can bend it a little bit. We get two different types of fasteners. They're both M8. But we have a button head here. It looks to be, I'm thinking 6 millimeter. No, yeah, 6 millimeter. I'm thinking wrench there. Not very long. Looks to be about 10 millimeters or 12 millimeters. And then we have this one here, and this is a hex head, again an M8. And this hex head size is a size 13. And remember, they gave you that over here, that 13 would fit it. And that's for fastening the plate, the pedal tray or base down here. That has an M8. So I'm going to be using some M8 T-nuts, and I'll be using these to fasten it down to my profiles. I like the way everything is M8. Instead of, you got M8 and then M6. A lot of pedals have M6 down here for fastening it. So M8, you know, doesn't hurt to have an M8 if you can get it. What else we get? You get some Allen wrenches, so you can actually do the fasteners. And in this Allen wrench bag, we have these two flathead screws. Get one of them to fall out there. There we go. And that is for attaching your heel plate, heel stop. You can see that is actually a countersunk hole in there. That flathead screw will fit in there, and it'll look nice and pretty for you. Yeah, I think that's about it. It comes with a manual, very simple manual as far as the adjustments go. And speaking of adjustments, we'll get to that segment next. All right, now let's go over the throttle pedal adjustments. There's only two on the throttle, and one is common to the other pedals, and that is the pedal face itself. As far as angle adjustment on it, it's the same mechanism on this one as it is on the clutch and the brake. So I won't be repeating myself when I get over there. All right, so first thing you want to do is loosen a 10 millimeter nut in here. And they do give you, remember the wrenches. There's an 8 and 10 combo wrench. I was looking at these, and I was thinking you had to loosen these, but it doesn't say so in the directions, so we're going to do it without loosening them. If we did have to, they do give us actually two 5 millimeter, wrenches. So we can put one on each side. And that's what you need to do when you have typically on a bolt on one side, another one, you're going and you're actually screwing into the same spreader or spacer element that's in there. But we won't need those if this works the way I think it will. So what I'm going to do is, we got a nut back here, 10 millimeter nut. We have a 4 millimeter hex size here for this bolt. And what I'm going to do is kind of put my 4 mil in there. I'm using my wrenches because they're a little bit easier to use and more ergonomic. And then I'm going to take this nut while I'm holding this. I'm going to turn it clockwise. That's your reference. It'd be counterclockwise the way I'm looking at it. So clockwise will loosen this up. And that's all I'm going to do is loosen it, because it's locking down, kind of pinching this face plate in between them, the bolt head and the nut, to keep it from moving, able to move or screw anywhere so it stays steady. So now that I have it loose, I should be able to screw this in. Nope, I didn't get it very loose, did I? Get it a little bit looser. So apparently you have to get a little bit more looseness to it. There we go. I think everything's turning now. Okay. Now I did not loosen these two guys. And what I'm going to do is turn this, and it should bring the bottom of this closer to the lever. And I want to get very close to it because I typically like my pedal faces, or the way their angle is, to be pretty much straight up and down, but not quite. And I think I can do that with the room I have here. So what we're going to do is go ahead and start cranking this down. See what we get. You can see that's going to move. towards the base of our pedal lever. It goes. Let me get it pretty close. Yeah, that's probably good enough right there. And you can see I've changed the angle pretty much there. Probably going to like that based on my previous experience. Now, the nut is kind of hanging down. And you know, instead of repeating myself over and over with this, trying to get it to go back up against the back of the pedal face, you can see the gap we have there. I'm going to put my pinky in there and kind of spin it counterclockwise, like that. And just, you know, get it so it makes contact so I don't have to do this forever. And I'm going to hold this, because if I don't hold it and I turn it, it's going to push it back out. So you're going to make sure you hold it again. Now, again, I'm going counterclockwise for your reference. And just have to snug it up. You don't have to get it real tight, I would imagine. And yeah, I think I'm going to like that better. So that's it. And the other ones, I might change them too to the same angle or something close to the same angle, but I have to wait till I get them mounted before I do that. The cool thing is it's going to be very easy to do that. But just like most things, when you get pedals close together, it might be less easy to do it because we're trying to get in between them with a wrench, right? Of course, I can get on the outside here and outside there if the clutch is not over here. So what other adjustment we have? Just one more. Changes two things. Changes how hard it is to do the pedal and the travel of this pedal. So right now it's got a lot of travel in it, and I'm not sure if I'm going to like that much or not. Again, it's very hard to tell on a bench. You need to have it mounted and be in the cockpit and sitting in your driving position. But this is very easy to adjust. The spring is just compressed, and as we compress it, it does two things. It stiffens the pedal as far as resistance, and right now, again, not easy to tell on the bench, probably a little bit light for me. So we increase the resistance and we'll decrease travel on the pedal. And it's a very simple thing to turn this. Now this is a 20mm nut. They don't give you a wrench for this, but they've machined this quite well. Smooth everywhere. So you can do this with your fingers and it doesn't hurt or anything. It's not digging into your flesh when you're tightening this thing down. And before I get it too tight, you can't see it, I want to show you there's threads here where it goes into this kind of a rod end type of setup. It looks like there's some Durlin spacers on the side here, and it's connected on either side there, kind of pinching it together, but still able to pivot in there. So we're just going to turn that. And as I do that, of course, it's going to compress the spring. And there is a limit to those threads. Well, I think you can see that here. The threads actually end right here. So it turns a solid shank, no more threads, so you can only go that far. I'm going to go pretty far just to see how far we can go and see what the differences is as far as travel and the pedal feel. I got about another 10 mils to go here. Oh, maybe more than that. No, that's probably enough. All right. As I'm doing that, the spring's getting kind of a droop angle on it, but it's being captured here, so it's not going anywhere. And it's also being captured in the hollowed out piece behind that nut. Now, I'll push it. Oh, yes, definitely got more pressure on it now, and definitely a lot less travel. Now, whether, again, I like that or not, I don't know. We just had to put it on there and see. I'm probably going to let it get back out a little bit. But that's it. That's the two adjustments for the throttle. Couldn't be simpler, right? So what we'll do next is go over to the brake pedal, which we have, obviously, more things we can adjust on that. Now we'll look at changing out the spring and the bumper in the brake pedal. And we'll do the spring first, so let's go ahead and get to it. Now we do have a nut on here that has a preload function, so you can actually twist that down. It has some nice beveling on it, so it doesn't hurt your fingers when you use it. But I want a stiffer spring, and I'm going to be using the red one. The yellow one is what came with it out of the box. So what we have to do here is pretty simple. Some M5 screws, little button head units, either side. Now to be mindful of our washers that are in here, or spacers, or what do you want to call those. They're probably going to fall out when I take this apart. So go ahead and unscrew one of these screws. All right. Actually, I unscrewed the other screw when I did that. The other screw came out of the little pin that's in here. I'll show you what the screw looks like. Little short guy. Got some Loctite on it. Button head. And again, this is an M5 with a 3mm metric wrench size. Now I'm going to go ahead and push this out with my finger, this pin here. You see how I can get kind of proud there. And this is going to slide out. Now, I'm not going to do it right up in the air like this because I know these washers are going to fall out. What I'm going to do is try to turn this not upside down, but front ways like this. And then as I pull this out, the washers can fall in my hand. So I'm just going to pull this pin out. Oops, slip back in on me. There we go. I'm just going to pull it out. And I felt one washer drop. There's the other one, and it flipped back that way. So that's what that pin looks like. Shaft, what do you want to call it? It's threaded on both sides. You can just leave one side in. Now, I caught my washers. These are little black units. They're plastic or nylon, using the spacers. And now we have this unit to come out. You can see that's kind of like a rod end looking thing, but it doesn't have a bearing unit in it, so it's not really, it's a rod end system or doing the same thing, but not in the same way. So I'm going to take that loose first. I can get that to come loose. Maybe I can get the whole thing to come out. There we go. This whole unit's coming out, which is good. We have this plastic insert here. It threads into this piece here. And we have a little bolt going all the way through there. You can see we have a screw on the end. So I guess we can put a screwdriver in there if we need to and tighten this down, because this still, as you can see, it still swivels around. So we can get it to go, we can line it back up so it'll go back in here. Now, to change the spring though, I do need to take this apart. So I'm going to hold the nut and see if I can get, there we go, that rod end unit to come loose. And there it is. Got some threads all the way up, maybe about 15, 16 millimeters. Put that aside. Now we get this preload nut off. And there it is. And you can see the bevels I was talking about on this. So it doesn't really mar up your fingers when you're trying to put preload on it. You don't need gloves to do it, in other words. Then we have our bolt. Well, we'll go ahead and take the spring. Yeah, the spring comes right off that plastic piece like that. Just kind of sits on top of it. And it has this bolt in here with this long shank or shoulder type deal going on there that's solid. Then we have threads for the rest of it, stainless steel unit. So we'll go ahead and put our red spring on. And you can see side by side, at least you should be able to see this. You can see the red coils are thicker than the yellow. Obviously, this is going to be a stiffer spring. And they remind me of valve springs. If you've ever taken a motor's head apart and done a valve job on them, exactly what the kind of thing you'll find in there. Of course, not colored. All right, so we're going with red. Put my red back on. Very simple. Go ahead and put my nut back on. The reason you do that, you want to keep this from falling off, obviously. I couldn't just put this in here and then try to put the spring on because this would fall out. I wouldn't have enough to grab. We're going to put our rod end back on. Go ahead and tighten this up a little bit. Then we'll put it all back in as one unit, hopefully. And that'll go back in our little gold piece here. Just like that. All right, now I'm going to line up my rod end so it goes in the right direction and in the right orientation so I can get back to my hole in here. Now, if this was mounted to the pedal base over here, obviously it's going to be a lot more difficult trying to get these washers back in. I'm on the bench though, so it's going to be easier for me. And what I'm going to do is just kind of push this in and look at it where it lines up with the middle hole that we were in before. Then I'll take this pin here and get ready to put it in. Now, I'll take one of the washers, slide it in there, and you can't see this, but I'm looking down, I'm sliding it into the general area that it needs to be in, and then I'll just take, you know, an Allen wrench or something and look down straight in here and push that washer around. I think I've got it straight enough. But I'm really focusing on getting that eye straight because that's the important part. It's easy to push that washer around. I'm going to kind of push this in here and see what we're doing. There's got one way. Made it past the washer, it feels like. I should be able to wiggle this a little bit, move it back and forth, and finally get in. So there it was. It pushed right in. Now I'll put my finger on it to hold it. You can see it's flush with the pedal arm, but I still have to get the other washer in, right? So I have to back that out a little bit. So I'll flip it around here like this, push this back out far enough that I can get my other washer in there. And just kind of look down in there and see where it is. That's what I'm doing. So Go ahead and get our other washer. I'm going to slide it in from the front. I'll use this to drag it into position. It looks pretty good. Now I'm going to push this back up. And it looks like it's still hanging a little bit. Might be the washer, so you can get in here and push on it. As I'm putting upward pressure on this, the rod in here, or this pin, whatever you want to call it. There we go. See, I just kind of had pressure on it, and then I moved the washer around and popped through. Easy. Then we'll go ahead and put our M5 screw back in. Like that. 3mm hex. And I'm holding the screw on the other side. I'm going to try to keep it from twisting. And it seems to be working. Actually get pretty good torque on that. And there you have it. So changing the spring, pretty easy. Now, on the bench, it's easy. But if you had this straight up and down, of course, it's going to be a lot more fiddly to get these washers back in, won't it? So you might want to just pull it off. I mean, how often are you going to change the spring? You only have two choices, right? So, yeah, I would probably just pull it off and do it on the bench like you just saw it here. Now we're going to change out the bumper in the rear of the brake pedal assembly. Flip it around here so you can see it. You see, there's the bumper, that black piece there. And we have the silver little piece in here. It's a spacer slash piston that pushes inside of this housing here against the load cell. It's a 100-kilogram load cell sitting on the back of that. We have to get this apart to get this out. And it has to come out this way. So what we're going to do is take out these 3 bolts. We have 1, 2, 3 there. And we have 3 here. Now the ones over here on the front part, on both sides, here and here, they actually hold this metal piece here. You can see the little piece in there. They're holding that on. And once I have those loose, then the only thing holding them on will be these 2 on each side. And they are going into that block that I was just showing you there. And we have our electronics board, or the circuit board, sitting on this piece too. And you can see we have 3 screws back here that are holding that together. But we can take this off as one unit. Now we see we have a piece of electrical tape back here. I'm probably going to pull that loose as I rotate this out, because I want to make sure that I don't bind anything up and don't put any pressure on any of the pieces on this cable, right? So let's go ahead and take these loose. What I usually do when I'm taking something like this apart is I'll loosen things first. I won't take them all the way out, just to see what's going on when I start pulling things apart, because taking one, unless you've done it before, obviously, and you know what's going on, you know, just running one out and then another one, and flip it over, do that. You can do it that way, but again, I like to have everything a little loose when I'm finally pulling them out. All right, so this is an M5 bolt here. It has some Loctite on it. And that is, of course, is a hex or Allen style wrench on there, and 3mm. Right. So let's go ahead and I'm going to take these out on the sides. I'm going to leave that bottom one in. Go ahead, flip it to this side and take this one and the other one out too. Now we just have 2, and you can see how loose it's gotten now. It's rattling. Now we're ready, I think. Go ahead and pull that one out. I'm putting my finger on it just in case it wants to just let go. All right. And I'm going to take this electrical tape off. Let that cable kind of go free. It doesn't say anything in the instructions about doing that, but I'm going to show you a look inside while I'm doing this too. Do that segment, might as well do it all at once. And yeah. So anyway, now we're loose. And the idea is to take this and rotate it out this way. We're going in a curve this way. That's what I'm going to do, and it's coming loose. And there it is. And of course, be careful, obviously, about that cable. I'm going to set everything down on the bench. This is something you probably want to do on the bench and not try to do when you're sitting, or when you have them on your pedal base over here already mounted on your cockpit. I'm going to pull this cable loose out of the controller box up here, just so we can get a good look at things. And it's got a little locking tab on the top of it, so I'll see if I can get in there and just push that down. Let me turn it up this way, give me a better look at it. Yeah, that's better. So use my flat piece here. Push that down. There it is. Okay, so we've got this piece in here, and it's on one end of the bumper, and you can see it goes into the block that our load cell's mounted to. So that's what that looks like. Now, I'm going to put this back in there and just make a little point of reference here to the distance between this and how far it's sticking out or protruding when it's fully seated from this block. So when I put all this back together, if I'm having a problem, I can look in there and see if this is like sitting up too high like that and something's wrong. It's just not sitting down like it's supposed to. It's just a mental reference that when you're pulling things apart, I like to do that. Now I'm going to carefully, I'll go ahead and pull this out. How about that first? One thing at a time. So you can see how much thicker one part is than the other. This one going into the bumper, that is right here. Go ahead and pull that out. So it goes in like that. All right, there's our bumper. And this is the easiest one or softest. And it comes stock that way. Go ahead and put that over there. And now that we've seen this piece, we'll go ahead and put it where we won't lose it. Now I want to be very careful about pulling this piece out because the load cell is attached to it. Now this piece here, when you look at this, you think, oh goodness, isn't this going to be pressing up against, you know, this plug in there? You can see the plug in there and see the wires coming out of the load cell assembly. And when it's tight, it looks like it could be pressing up against that. But it doesn't do that because these screws that are mounted in here, when you screw this down, this block is actually attached to the brake side pieces itself. So it can't be pushed back. This is what's keeping that from happening. So when I first looked at it, I said, ooh, that looks very close with the wires in there, the cables. So let's go ahead and take this assembly out. If I can, I kind of hang it this way, upside down. So I'll let gravity help me out if I get it to work. I'm just going to kind of twist this out if I can. There's some glue in here. There we go. Now it's all apart. And that is the actual load cell element where the glue is sitting on it. And so the bolt's going through, or that shaft is going through and pressing on that part of the load cell. Again, there's no markings on this load cell. It's supposed to be 100 kilogram. And you can see there's the circuit board that will do the amplification. Remember, load cells need some kind of amplification circuit so that it amplifies the signal coming off the load cell. It's so low that they need to amplify it before they convert it to USB and send it off to the PC. Pretty clean looking board in there. I really don't have any complaints about that. I don't know what you guys think. Everything is surface mounted. So yeah, pretty simple assembly in here. When I first saw it, I wasn't too crazy about the way that was lining up. Those cables were lining up with this plug on the top here. I'm going to go ahead and put this back in. And you can see what I mean. If this was actually pressing against that, that would be a very bad thing, wouldn't it? Over and over again, the cables wouldn't last very long, I don't think. Get that flat there. But because this block is actually mounted to this, it's never being pushed back against it. So that's the design. All right. That was our look inside too while we're doing the pedal adjustments. All right, so I got that back in there flat. I'm going to put this piece back in. Right? Just like that. And now we're ready to go back in. We get a hard and a medium. I'm going to use the hard because I like a stiff brake pedal. I already got the red spring in here. I'm going to go ahead and put the hard bumper in too. And I might even put some preload on it once I actually have it mounted. Really can't tell about these things until you have this pedal mounted and you have the full force of your leg on it, pushing it. Then you can tell. So we'll go ahead and just kind of put this. I'll show you while this is sitting here. There's the end that our bumper is going on. Pretty simple stuff here, really. So I just put it back in there like that, the way it came out. This pedal here, when you're putting this back in, it tends to want to slide up on you. See how it moves there in that channel? And that's just guide channels there with some plastic bushings, it looks like, to guide it. So now I got to put this back in. So I'm going to take it, and I'm going to wait to plug it in until I'm done. So I'm just like it came out, I'm going to try to rotate this thing back in, or kind of get it to rotate. Now the thing about this is, it's a tight friction fit with this piece here, this silver piece. It's kind of a friction fit on these sides, each one of these sides where our screw holes are, into this frame. So you want to make sure you get this straight as you're pushing it in, or if it gets crooked, goes in like this, it's going to bind, it won't go all the way in. Looks like it will to me anyway. So go ahead and get this situated. I'm just going, again, I'm just pushing this back in. Take my fingers, kind of hold that block a little bit and get it started. And once I get it started, then I'm going to flip it around like this. And I'm going to be looking in here as I'm doing this, watching where the bumpers, make sure the bumper gets on that stud. And then make sure, see, I'm already crooked on that block, so it's not going to go in like that. So I'm going to have to fiddle with it to get it to go in. I'm just going to kind of set it here, but when you set it down, you have to be careful because you're pushing on the brake pedal, which tends to push everything backwards. So, yeah, a little bit of a dance here. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to kind of maneuver this block around first. That's the main thing, to get it started nice and square, I think. At least that's my opinion on how this should go in. And yeah, again, it doesn't, not cooperating. This is a bit fiddly. I'm not gonna lie to you. Get this guy to slide over here, maybe. Yeah, if we can't get this straight, it's not gonna go in. Maybe I can get the back to start first. Yeah, the back part is easier to start first, so it's going in. You can see I'm actually going in now with it. So now it's straight, it's flush, and it's going in like it should. Looks like the end is going into my bumper. I'm just gonna kind of rotate it in. So it's kind of like going in the same way you came out, same kind of motion. So you get the back of this block started down in here first, and that squares it up. So you can pivot it this way back in. All right, so now we got everything back in. What I'm going to do is put a couple of these screws back in. I'm going to put the ones up front here, because the ones up front are the ones holding this plastic piece, or not plastic, it's aluminum, but holding this piece here on. And once I do that, I don't have to worry about it all falling apart on me while I'm trying to get the other screws in, right? Just the way I'm doing it. There's different ways to get this done. I'm going to kind of look down here and get the screw hole set up. There we go. We'll go ahead. I'm not going to get real tight with that either. I'm just going to kind of let it just be a guide, if you will. So let's go ahead and get the other one in. I'm looking down at it, getting it straight up. And I'm going to grab my screw, if I can hold on to it. I'm going to push in a little bit so I can get it lined up. There we go. All right, so that's kind of lining up the housing itself back here. But I still have to get my bolts into that block through here. And if you can see, they're not lining up very well, are they? This is actually flush. And you can see that block is floating in there. I need to get those holes to come down this way to get my bolts in, right? So if I grab it over here, kind of push down on it, I'm not getting much. And there's really no way to get anything leverage on this. If you try to get in here and like lever it against this housing back here, you can't, because that's where our circuit board is, right? So I can't get in here and try to pry down on it, because it's going to go right into that circuit board and it's going to ruin your day. So what do you do? Here's the way I would do it. Of course, there's other ways to get it done. I would be looking at it this way, right? I'm going to get my Allen wrench to go inside that. Remember, that block is one piece. This will go all the way through, like this. At least that's the idea. You can see it's all the way through now, like this. But I'm going to back it out where I have enough room to get a bolt started. And then I'm going to try to put pressure on it to get that thing to line up. And that doesn't look like it's moving much. All right. So yeah, this is not going to be easy. This is going to be fiddly. See that right now. Not only that, but I put the hardest bumper in there. So it's not going to compress much no matter what I do. So yeah, this is where I'm going to have to get off angle here. And you guys might never see exactly, but you understand what I'm trying to do here. And I can't put too much pressure on these threads either in this block, because you don't want to crush the threads. And again, you've ruined your day, right? gonna have to get a tap and I'll mess with all kinds of stuff. What I'm gonna do is see if I can get it just to go down enough to get a bolt into one of them or the other. Let me try this other side, see how far it's going down. Because right now I'm not getting any progress here. Yeah, this is not easy. I think I got that one though. Then I'll take my bolt over here, or my screw, and see if, while I have pressure on it. Yeah, I got it started. Good. So that one started. And of course, what I was doing was just taking the wrench and holding it like this, and then picking up with these fingers. And of course, picking up here was pushing down over there. Kind of a lever thing, right? Now, that brought down the back one a bit. See how I got that one started? This was not sticking up as far over here. That gives me hope that I can get the other one in. Well, I got to look at the other side too. You got to pay attention to everything that's going on here. So I'm going to try to get one on the other side, because you can see they're still sticking up pretty good, right? So it's kind of twisting, almost getting like it's off angle a little bit. Can't really tell here, but you can from the holes. So let's go to the last open one over here, and I'll see if I can get one started on this side. And once I have two in on each side, that should bring everything into where I need to be. So yep, I'm pushing down on again by picking up over here on the other side. Get my bolt out, or screw. See if I can get it started. Back this out a little bit because I was a little bit far into the threads. There we go. And that was hitting it as I was trying to put the screw in. So it's hitting the end of this, which obviously I'm not going to let you screw it in. So now I've got both sides in, and they're staggered. So I got one towards the bottom here, bottom of the pedal, and I have over here one on the top. And that's kind of bottom in line. So now I should be able to get them started, I'm thinking. Now, you don't want to strip this stuff out. You don't want to force it. Typically, I like to use finger pressure only when I start this kind of thing. So I know if I'm in trouble right away. And yeah, I'm actually turning it. And once I get it started, or feel like I've gotten it started, then and only then will I get my wrench. And then slowly, light pressure, see if it'll go in. And that's going in. All right, so now we've got 3 in. Now we just got one more to go. I'm going to look at the hole over there and see what it's looking like. There it is. Still looks a little high, doesn't it? But might be enough for me to get the screw in. Yeah. Not crazy about how this is done, this system. I'm just going to kind of get my fingers on here again and see if I can feel that thread go into the other one. Like I said, if you can do it with your fingers, you're good to go. I think we're good. Go ahead and put this back in. There we go. All right, we're done. Pretty fiddly, huh? Definitely would not want to do this with your pedal mounted to your pedal base that comes with this set. We'll go ahead and get everything else cranked down. And then we'll go in and get our little cable hooked back up. And you can see it's got one of those little lock things on it. Yeah, there. You know, make sure you orient it right when you put it back in. That's what I'm looking at. And of course, there's our white plug that it goes into. White one, not the black one. Just kind of line this puppy up. If I can get it to go in without too much drama. There we go. The click of satisfaction. All right, so now, a little fumbly with my fingers here, the gloves on them. I'm going to go ahead and put this tape back on here. Get the cable so it's secured like that. In fact, I'll probably get myself another piece of tape. I'm not crazy about how that's sitting there, but looks like it might come off. So I'll just get a new piece, little piece of electrical tape, no big deal. Put it back on. So there it is, the adjustments for our brake pedal. And yeah, let's get on to the next segment. Now we'll look at the clutch pedal adjustments. This will be a short segment because there's not a lot of adjustments on the clutch pedal. There's no spring. I didn't get a spring in my kit to replace this spring with. So pretty much as far as attention goes, it's done. And we don't get any profile changes. these little pieces in here that we saw in a closer look, they had those profiles in it. So when we activate the clutch, we've got these rollers that follow that profile. I'll actually action it, see if I can do that. Oh, you guys see it? See the rollers moving? They're moving along that profile, and then they fall off the end of it, kind of like that. And then they'll snap back. You hold it tight. There we go. And that gives you that spring pressure that you'll find in a pressure plate that's in the clutch packs on cars. So yeah, it feels pretty good on the bench anyway. And plus, once you're actually driving this and using a clutch, heel and toe, like I'll be using them, yeah, when I'm slapping on this, it's probably not going to matter if there's another spring in there or not. It's going to feel pretty much the same to me. I'll be doing it so fast. So yeah, the pedal face obviously is adjustable to angle. We covered that on the throttle adjustments, so you can go look at that if you want to see how that's done. It's pretty simple. And yeah, that's it for the clutch. Now we're going to mount our pedals to the pedal base that comes with this MOZA set of pedals. And we saw this in the closer look. And this is a 2mm gauge steel. Looks like it's stamped. It has a curve going around here. And then it joins these brackets in the middle. We have 3 brackets in the middle here. And they are tack welded in the middle around this part of it. And they're secured with screws over here. So I think the reason they use the screws is they can put this bracket in between these 2 pieces, screw it down tightly, and then that acts as a jig once they get them all installed, a welding jig, so nothing moves while they're doing their tack welds. And these are just tack welds. There's 4 on each side. There's 2 over here, there's 2 over here, 2 down here. But if you notice on the middle one, and I show this in the closer look, it only has 1 tack weld there, over here. So they missed one in the manufacturing process. The other one down here has 4, so we're good to go. Another thing I noticed about this is there are holes on the bottom, obviously, to mount this to something. I'll be mounting this to profile. So I'll be coming in the hollow part from back here with a bolt like this. So I can get into a T-nut. And these are M8 bolts that go into M8 holes. We have slots. We have holes here. The holes are closer, so easier to access once you have it sitting down on your profile. And we have slots here. One thing to note, it looks like they missed one of the holes. Show you that over here. There is no hole. One over here, but not over here. And of course, we've already seen that we have a couple down here on the bottom. I can still use this using these slots, but again, I'm letting the guys at MOZA know that, yeah, that's something that they need to do. Now, of course, I could just drill my own hole if I wanted to, but I'm just going to leave it alone because I can still get a M8 through the slot and still get a ratcheting wrench in here and tighten it up. It shouldn't be a problem for me. But it'd be nicer to use the holes that are closer to the front or the ends because then it's easier to access them with your wrench. Just things of note. The pattern on the top here is 6 holes for each pedal. Now, most pedals only have 4 holes, but these have 6 holes. And you could probably get away with using 4 bolts in these, I imagine. So, yeah. But I'm going to use 6 because they gave me 6. See how that does. Now, there is a pattern difference here on this other side, as you can see. I've got 2 holes together. That will give me, this will be this hole and this hole, these 2 holes, not the middle one. And that lines up this pedal perfectly. Now, if I wanted to move the pedal over for whatever reasons, I could come over here and mount to this middle one now, and these over here, like this. Or I'm thinking probably it gives you an opportunity to, if you wanted to run a 2-pedal setup, you could just run it like this with the brake pedal, or you could bring the brake pedal all the way over here. But that's the only options you have, and your throttle would be sitting here like this. Now, if I bought the throttle over here, then the other holes do not line up over here. So throttle will stay where it is, but it gives you an opportunity to move the brake pedal in a sideways or lateral direction if you need to. All right, so what we're going to do is go ahead and put these pedals on. We're going to use these provided button head M8 bolts. That is a 5mm hex wrench size on the end of this. So that's what I'll be using to attach it. We also have these nylon washers that are provided, and they do give you all the fasteners for 6 bolts on each pedal. And I like the nylon washers. Now, if you have to torque something down a lot, yeah, not a good idea. But you really don't have to torque the heck out of this. You got 6 of these things, and these pedals aren't going to go anywhere if you get them torqued down reasonably, and you won't split the washers. The cool thing about nylon washers is that once you put them on and tighten something up, like on here, it's not going to scratch the anodization on there. Any kind of metal, aluminum, steel, doesn't matter, black coated or not, whatever, it's still going to scratch it. You're going to leave a mark or an indentation when you take it off, which, you know, is kind of status quo when you're fastening things to things. So it's just one of those things that you don't have to worry about with the nylons, as long as you don't have to torque down a lot on it. Okay, so yeah, pretty simple what we're doing here. I'm just going to set these up here. I'll get my holes lined up, get a bolt started here, and use my little speed wrench. And yeah, I'm not going to tighten them all up, obviously. You have to leave them all loose as you put them in, so we can still maneuver this around in case we have to get closer on a hole somewhere. So pretty simple what I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to go ahead and put all these on, and when we come back, we'll see how that went. Now I have all 3 pedals mounted to the plate, and I went ahead and installed the heel stop too. And I was able to get it in the very last hole. You can see there's a set of 3 here, and I got it in the last one, which gives me room in between the pedals. I'm still not hitting the pedals with this, so the further you go back, obviously, the more heel area for our heels we're going to have to rest our heels on when we're using the pedals. So yeah, pretty simple stuff. Like I said before, you just install your bolts, tighten them down, not too tight because they are nylon washers. You don't want to crack them or anything like that. And yeah, everything went as planned. And I already plugged in my clutch over here to the clutch plug, and also the throttle over to the throttle plug over there. So I'm good to go there. And it is pretty tight in here for the USB connection, as you know. I've already undone this cable, and it has that 90-degree in it, which is nice because it will fit right in here. No drama. And then you can connect it to your computer. Now, I've already done this because I like to test my pedals on the bench to make sure once I have everything assembled before I take it over there and bolt it down to my profile rig. Then, yeah, I want to make sure everything's working so I don't have to do testing with it bolted to the rig or have to take it back off, that kind of thing. It's just when you do this enough times, you learn a good process to follow as you install things. And there we have it, ready to go. And all we have to do now is get it mounted to the profile cockpit over there, and I will come back when we have that done. Here are the pedals mounted to my rig. Everything went pretty smoothly here. Getting the pedals mounted, no big deal. The base plate that the pedals are mounted to also went a little easier than I thought it would be because I thought I might have a reach issue, but it went okay. And I'll show you the bolts that I used to get it mounted, just like I was talking about before when you're talking about the first segment of this mounting. So the USB cable works like a champ down there with that 90-degree angle. Of course, you can see there's not a lot of space to get a USB-B type of plug in there, so that works great. And we'll just come around to the front here. And I'll go down and show you the bolts where they are placed. I think you can see the top of it there. I used some washers, not the washers included, because I was going to be torquing down on these a bit. And you can get a wrench in there. I actually have some hex head wrenches that have the ratcheting box end on it, and that worked great. You can see the other one way back there in the back. I think you can see that. And the same thing over here. So yeah, I had to put a little bit of torque on that, so I used a metal washer that I had already available. We have our heel stop on here, and that is all the way back. You can see there are actually 2 holes showing there. Well, 1.5, but they're all the way back to the back hole of that 3-hole set. So yeah, everything's lined up. I got the pedal faces angled the way I want them now. So all we have to do now is get in and have some fun and do our driving segment. We're at iRacing at Sebring and the Lotus 79 for some heel and toe fun. Now, you will see this cockpit moving around a bit because I'm on a motion platform. It has 4 actuators, and when I'm throwing my weight around, you'll see it move. Now, from my perspective, sitting in the seat that's bolted to the same cockpit that the pedals are bolted from, there is no motion, all right? So I just want to make sure you guys understand that when you see that motion. It doesn't affect what I feel. So the pedals as a whole feel pretty stiff. Not much flex at all underfoot, and I hammered on them pretty good. And the base plate is a lot more solid than I thought it was going to be. on the bench. When I was looking at the bench, I wasn't sure if it would be stretching and bending a little bit under the pressure. But I think if you watch this video footage, you can see it. There's no flex at all in that base plate once I had it obviously securely mounted to the rig. So yeah, kudos that they got a good design on that and it doesn't flex. Now the pedals themselves with the thick 5mm aluminum plates on the side, that very massive piece of aluminum they're using for their pedals on the levers. Yeah, this all translates to stiffness, and that translates to tactile feedback underfoot. So it's important to me to be able to feel what's going on with the pedals underfoot, and that's one of the reasons I use these very thin-soled Van shoes too, because I can feel what's going on. It gives me more of a sense of being in control of the car, and it's reacting to what I'm doing with the pedals. Now, modulation on the throttle is very important, obviously, and it was able to do that for me, but I'm not really picky about throttles too much. As long as it gives me a nice smooth stroke to it, a linear stroke, then I'm pretty happy. And enough stroke, of course. You know, too short's not good because then you don't have enough room. It feels like that you're really controlling the car with modulation. But too much is bad because then you overextend your ankle, and yeah, that just hurts after a long time. So this fit me pretty well. And again, this is all subjective as far as my observations here. You know, everybody's a little different. So I was happy with throttle modulation, really no complaints about that. Now we'll move over to the brake pedal. And the brake pedal, I have the red spring in, which is the hardest spring or the stiffest spring. I also have the stiffest bumper in there, the hard one, and that's where I left it. I did play with the preload a little bit. Here you see there's no preload on it. I ended up with a little bit more on it in my final configuration. I was able to modulate the brake under threshold braking and transition over to the trail braking pretty well, but I couldn't feel like I was really controlling the car at that it's a very vague area there. And it's hard to get a brake pedal, at least for me, to feel like I'm actually controlling the car in that area where I'm transitioning from that threshold to the trail. I was able to do it consistently, obviously. You can see me, I'm running pretty good here. And I was doing consistent lap times that I normally do. So it didn't affect me there, but I just didn't have the feel that I was controlling that part of the braking process of going into a turn. And not many brake pedals can do that for me, so I really wasn't expecting it to. But others might think it works great. I think there's enough adjustment range here. That's, I think, the most important thing is to be able to have enough adjustment range for somebody to come up to speed and feel like they're controlling the car with the brake pedal, not just all muscle memory as far as when you're controlling the car. I think that matters a lot in simulation anyway. So brake pedal, really can't complain about it. I mean, especially the price point, I think it's meeting expectations there. I've had better brake pedals underfoot. You know, it's only a 100 kilogram load cell here, and I prefer a little stiffer load cell, which translates to a stiffer brake pedal. But I was able to get the job done with this pedal set, and I could drive quickly with them. So, and I would personally want something else. I think most people who are driving in simulation, it'll get the job done with no problems. Enough adjustment range in there. The clutch itself did have that feel of pushing through a pressure plates spring, and then when you let off, it kicks it back at you. But when you're driving like this, you see these downshifts, and I'm hammering away on these pedals. That kind of all goes away. Can't really feel that anymore, and you're not really focusing on it either. I mean, it feels great when you're sitting in the pits or something and you're using the clutch pedal or whatever, you're sitting in your cockpit doing it. You can feel that sensation then. But once you're doing this, yeah, it all goes away. And all brakes pedals to me have done that in the past. I haven't had one clutch pedal, well, maybe the Simtrex, that I could still feel it. But yeah, it's not something that I'm that concerned about anyway. But it feels cool when you're sitting in the pits and that's what you want to use. But yeah, clutch pedal, what can you say about it? It's getting the job done. It's engaging the clutch so I can get my shifts done without stripping the gears and missing gears. And yeah, at the end of the day, that's all it's about. And when I'm slapping it, it did feel firm. It didn't feel mushy underfoot, just like the rest of the pedals. You know, it's built the same way. So yeah, no big surprise there. Overall, this pedal set at the price point, I think, meets expectations. Whether or not this is the pedal set you want, obviously, there's so many pedal sets out there now, and more coming out, it seems like, every day. It's getting harder and harder to make a decision about what pedal set to get. And there's other things to consider too, like, you know, who's making the pedals, where are they coming from, what do they look like? Aesthetics is a big thing too. I mean, we might lie to ourselves and say it's not, but it is. End of the day, we want a good looking set of pedals on our rigs, at least most people do. So, yeah, acceptable set of pedals at the price point, and if you get them, I think most people would be happy with them. So, yeah, not much else to say about it. Final thoughts on the CRP pedal set from the guys at MOZA Racing. Out of the box, these pedals have a clean, professional look and feel to them. I could find no defects as far as fit and finish are concerned. The pedals are constructed from 5mm thick side plates that also incorporate a mounting flange. Pedal levers are CNC machined from billet aluminum that are 30mm square. There is some nice chamfering on the levers, which is also found throughout the pedal set. Hall sensors on these pedals are of a contactless Hall sensor design, which should give long life cycles. These pedals did have enough adjustment options that allowed me to dial in settings that suited me well enough. Throttle travel is smooth and linear, which allowed me to properly modulate the throttle where needed. The clutch pedal has a roller cam profile setup that gives the feel of pressing through the pressure plate spring in a real clutch pack, although, as with most clutch pedals incorporating this feature, that feeling goes away when using my aggressive heel and toe technique. The brake pedal has a 100 kilogram load cell mounted to it. There is a fair amount of adjustment range that should get most to where they need to be. I was able to get a setting that felt good enough to control the car in threshold braking, but still left me wanting in the critical threshold to trail braking transition area, as do most all brake pedals I've tested in the past. Just not something that is easy to achieve for me. The brake pedal spring swapping process is easy to do, something that cannot be said for the bumper replacement process. I find it a bit fiddly to get the hard bumper mounted in this system. Doable, but not something I would want to do often. Driving the CRP pedals was a good experience that most would like, I think. They feel stiff underfoot with no perceivable flex when mounted to their surprisingly stiff pedal base. This provided me with good tactile feedback when working the pedals using my heel and toe technique. I was able to get very close to my usual lap times, even though the brake pedal felt a bit vague to me transitioning from threshold to trail braking modes, the same as with most brake pedals I've tested in the past. Overall, at the price point, I think these pedals do a good job, and seem to be constructed in a way that should make them durable. Thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and if you would like to help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.